Hey, how's it going? More light reading. I can't wait to really get to this one. Listen, today's video is not going to have a whole lot of ha ha ha. It's kind of a heavy subject here. You saw the title. And I'm just going to start off by saying I knew Ron Goldman. Didn't know him super well. That will be revealed as I, kind of expose this story. Months ago, I was doing this thing for 6 weeks, this radio show, Outlaw Radio, Magic Matt Allen. And after the first episode I did with them, I met Cato Kalin. He would show up every night, every Saturday there after the radio show, and they'd all play poker. Nice guy. After that initial meeting, I was over at a friend's house in Reseda, talking to him, and I mentioned that I, met Cato Kalin. It was to me, it was kind of funny. Not that funny, because I knew Ron, and that's not a great subject. That was a real freaking bummer, man, as you can imagine. And, but he says to me, he says, well, OJ didn't kill those people. I know who killed those people. And I'm like, come on. And he tells me his story, a part of the story. And I went home and I looked this guy up. And there's actually been a documentary, at least one documentary on it. There's plenty of stories on it. And, that kind of like, I feel like I'm pretty convinced about this story now. So the next week, I went back to the radio show and I tried to talk to Matt about that. Like, hey, man, this might be something you might want to talk about. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. Didn't want to hear it. Him and his brother, they were trying to convince me that they think Cato had something to do with it. Which I just think that might be guys wanting to believe something to make it sound like a big deal or something in their minds. I don't know. People will do that. I know this guy and he did all this stuff, A lot of people are guilty of it. I'm probably guilty of that at some point. So, whatever. I just kind of dropped it. And I've kind of blocked it out of my head. But I was recently hanging out with my buddy again. And I remembered what he had told me. And so I spoke with him about it again. And I got more of his story. And I went back and I kind of looked this guy up again on the computer. And mostly because I want to remember his name so I can tell you guys the story. And I kind of briefly glanced over some of the stuff I had read months ago. And I thought it might be an interesting story for you guys. And something to think about. So now we'll jump back to 1994. Young guy in LA. I'm studying acting at Nick Conti's Actors Lab, right? In Beverly Hills. And I'm still friends with a bunch of the girls from that class. I got my friend Emily, who I love, and she's from Kentucky, and she's married to a guy with kids out there. And my friend Michelle, she was French Canadian. She was living down here at the time, down in Venice. And a lot of this happened. The people I know were because of her. She got me a job. I was working at Yankee Doodles at the time, working the door, and I had some bartending shifts during the day. My friend Clarielle, she's this beautiful Chinese woman who's living in New Zealand now. We still talk as she comes to the States from time to time. And there was this girl, Lauren. And Lauren was, your classic, super good looking, super hot. I'm pretty sure Lauren had green eyes. Just drop dead gorgeous, seemingly sweet, all of it. I say seemingly because, I got to know her later. Nothing wrong with her. Lauren's great. So at this time, Lauren was going out with Ron. They were a pretty serious item. And they even got matching tattoos together. And so this is how I met Ron. So I met Ron, I don't remember how many times. Maybe 3, maybe 4 times. I could think of a couple of those times pretty vividly because I know, I think at least 3. There was this place on the west side, probably not around anymore. I don't remember the name of it. The Yorkster or something? I can't remember. But there was a bar on the west side that we would oftentimes meet at and have drinks. And then I know Lauren, I think it was Lauren that hosted a Oscar party at her house. I know I met Ron that time and hung out with him and talked to him for quite some time. And then she had a birthday party at the Roxy up here on Sunset. So she had the whole upstairs there, that private room for her birthday party, and distinctly remember him that time. I still see him sitting in the booth there. And he good looking guy, really, really sweet man, young guy. Now, he was my age, 25 years old, I think. And he was a nice guy. I was definitely jealous, though. I mean, Lauren was hot. So the news hits, and I see it. I'm not even sure if I had a TV at the time. I may have had a TV. I had this little black and white for a while, and I might have had it at that time. I was kind of following. I must have been, because I remember watching The Chase when they were going after OJ, and he was in the Bronco on the highway there. But all I know is my friend Michelle calls me. She goes, "Can you believe this?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She says, "Ron." "Ron who?" "Ron Goldman." I'm not ringing a bell, because I never knew Ron's last name. That's how crazy it was. She goes, "Mike, you know Ron. We've hung out with Ron a bunch of times. Lauren's boyfriend." And boom. Oh, man, this just this dread. I can remember that feeling even now, thinking about it. It's just such a fucking bummer, man. That was, and it just, it made, the bummer was, well, first of all, that was the end of our group, basically, because Lauren checked out of everything, which you can imagine. I never spoke to her again after that until, I think, around 2006-ish. I think I could have that year way off. I ended up doing some work for her. We reconnected through my friend Michelle. I don't know if I should get into that right now or not, but we'll put that to the side. If I get to it, I get to it. If I don't, it's not as important. But that period of time, I think that was probably when I stopped going to that acting class even. It might have been just kind of the end of everything. I don't even remember why I stopped going there, but that's probably it. It was a pretty traumatic event. I mean, if it was weird for me, you can imagine what it was like for her. It was very, very heavy for her. When I was doing work for her, going to her house, we didn't get too deep into it. A lot of time had gone by, but she still has pictures of him up in her house. And that's how serious, this whole thing is and was. So that time in LA, when everything was all about the OJ case, it was not, it was terrible. It was terrible for everybody. It was, I suppose it was entertaining. It was getting ratings with the media and everything. But for me and my friends, it was just a bummer. So I wasn't trying to pay too much attention to it, honestly. And that's that. That's kind of the end of that, and I didn't like thinking about it. So I didn't. Jump to, years go by, and well, actually, in 2000, Michelle and I went to Paris together for the Millennium. She knew a guy there. We stayed at his apartment, and that was cool. And then several years after that was when I got reconnected with Lauren again. And I built, I might even put a link to this, just, it's a little self-promotion to this built-in I did at her house. Lauren became, this is kind of funny. So I'm not going to use her last name or anything, but she became an A-list makeup artist. So at that time, she was doing Michael Bublé, and she does Steven Tyler, which is funny because, Steven Tyler started looking more and more even like a woman. And, he does this thing where he scrunches up. That's what she does. Imagine you're spending that much time with somebody in your face. You will start becoming that. She makes him look like her. When I reconnected with her, and then I looked at Steven Tyler, I was like, holy crap. I wonder if that was like a request of his. Or if she just does that. Imagine a makeup artist. There's a theme for a comedy movie. A-list makeup artist who makes everybody look like her. It was kind of weird. I'm not going to talk too much, but it wasn't a happy thing. I gave her too good of a deal. And she kept asking for more stuff. And then I just felt like she was taking advantage. And I just kind of drifted away from that. But it was nice to reconnect with her and see that she I mean, I don't know if she's still 100% over the Ron thing, but she got through that, and she has a great life, and she's successful and owns a house. She's doing very, very well. So I'm happy for her. So now jump to this story. This might be a very short video, actually. I thought that much was going to take up a lot of time. It's funny. So my buddy's story was around that time. He was hanging out with a group of kids. He was the oldest one. He was in his early 20s, 21, 22, 23, in that range. I think he's probably 21 or 22. But these people were like still in high school, a lot of them, like seniors. And he was hanging out with a group of guys. They were cruising around Ventura Boulevard in like this convertible Mustang. And they kept seeing this Pathfinder around. And there was an incident. And they all started hanging out together after that. And these guys were friends with the Kardashians, you know, the girls. And a couple of those guys went out with Kim and her sisters. And then he went out with one of their best friends. And so they were all connected. And he was able to buy them beer and all that other stuff. And they were hanging out at a Denny's that doesn't exist anymore on Ventura Boulevard. Over there by, I guess it was cross street from Jerry's Deli, I think. And they would hang out in this parking lot. And so everybody would come through there. Now, my buddy at the time, I think I can reveal this because it's a lot of times gone by, but, you know, he would sell little drugs, you know, that sort of thing. So there was people like that there, selling drugs, buying drugs, drinking, partying. Some of these guys were hoods, you know, straight up robbing people, that sort of thing. And so this dude, whose name is Glenn Edward Rogers. I'm going to put a link. I'm just going to do if you guys are curious about this is going to be like a link. It's a DuckDuckGo link to all the Glenn Edwards Rogers stories. This guy was, according to him, and through his circle of friends, and he hung out with this guy and knew him, wasn't best friends with him or anything, but definitely hung out with him, probably heard more about him than the guy had ever revealed to my friend, you know, from the horse's mouth. But he was a known guy that would get things done for you. He'd buy things, he would hold people up, he'd break into houses and steal things. Whatever you wanted, this guy would do. He was crazy, didn't care. And he was known to be a dangerous guy. So when the incident took place and Nicole Brown and Ron were murdered, this guy was walking around. Apparently he had a chain on, like a gold chain. My buddy said that he thought it had an angel on it or something. But through the group of friends that he was hanging out with, he understood it, that he told some of those people that that was her necklace he took off her and he was wearing it. And he admitted to killing her. Straight up. So, and this is the story he told me. And then I looked him up. And this guy, at one point, he had admitted to over 70 murders. He was a serial killer. His MO was he drove across the country and he'd pick up a woman in a bar, take her to a hotel, have a good time with her, kill her, leave her body in the bathtub, take her car and her money, take off, go to the next place. And he'd just do that across the country. And you can look this up. He admitted to killing these people. And for whatever reason, they didn't follow through on that. Now, as far as the blood and everything, with the OJ part of it, I didn't remember any of this, and this is a buddy of mine reminded me of it, and I didn't go back and look into this because, you know, it's not super important to me. And if you're listening to me and you just want to hang on everything I'm telling you as the gospel, don't do that. This is third-party information here you're getting. But apparently there was a couple sets of footprints in the blood. And so the story is that this guy, apparently, OJ hired this dude to steal earrings back. Some super expensive earrings that he had given his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson. And I heard this, I either read this or my buddy said it, that OJ said to this guy, you might have to kill the bitch. And apparently, now, if you don't know what happened that night, the story is that Nicole was, I think, with her mom eating dinner at this restaurant in over there on the west side. I guess it's Brentwood, that Ron worked at. And she left something behind at the table. I think it was a pair of glasses. And Ron knew her pretty well, knew where she lived. And Ron, being a young actor, just like me, just like Lauren, just like all of us, if you know somebody that's connected in that world, I mean, she had been married to OJ, you know, you're going to want to be nice to those people and try to befriend them and all that sort of thing, because, you know, you're hoping to get a leg up in the business. That's how it works. It's, you know, a lot of it is luck and who you know. So it doesn't surprise me that the story was, he was supposed to go out with his buddy after work. Buddy was the bartender. He went to the bar, had a drink, had the glasses, told him, hey, I'm going to run these over to her house and get them to her, and then I'll come right back. And so he went and did that, and that was the last time anybody saw him alive, apparently. So what the story is that got relayed to my buddy through this group of his friends with this crazy guy is that this guy was in the process, I suppose, of killing her. Ron shows up, he kills him, and then what it sounds like is that OJ was probably watching this or showed up at that time, because he set the guy up. Like, he gave him the information of where she was and when would be a good time and all of that. So it's likely then, and I'm just trying to put this together, I'm not a freaking detective, but it's possible that he showed up. He could have seen it happen. He maybe could have been a part of it. It could have been more like he was there after they got killed and he went to check and see if this happened and found the bodies. You know, he might have touched something and walked through the blood and everything else. And that would explain how he got blood on him and everything else. So that's basically the story. That was pretty fast. There's no way I can give you guys a 15-minute video. I'm going to have to think up something else to tell you. Sunday night chat. So much for that. I thought this was going to be like this, some super long friggin' video here. I had this in my head for the last couple days. But crazy. And I know it sounds crazy that somebody gave me some grief a couple videos ago about like dropping a bunch of names or trying to make it sound like I was inventing some of this. Look, man, if you live in a city like this and you go out, you're going to meet these people. That's just how life is. If you live and actually these days you could be living anywhere and run into somebody well-known or famous or something, you know, but if you live where they live and you go out, they go out, you run into them. It's not that big of a deal. Honestly, it's not that big of a deal. They're just like everybody else. They want to go out, they got to eat, they want to have a drink, they got to buy things, you know. I remember seeing Sally Struthers one day at a light in the middle of the night on Fairfax and Beverly, me and a bunch of buddies, and we were hammered, and she was like in an SUV, and we were across the street. We looked at her, and we're like, Sally Struthers, and we were like dancing around her car. It scared the hell out of her, and if she's still around, I apologize. We weren't trying to scare her. We were just loaded, having a good time. But, yeah. Excuse me. That time, it's funny talking about it because I hadn't thought about it. I never think about it. I purposefully don't think about it because it's a bummer time, and losing touch with everybody because of this murder, and at the time too, I was doing a lot. And I was acting and I was building a lot of sets. I probably got into the movie business. No, I didn't get into the movies at that time. I got into the movies a little bit later, a little after that. But I was hustling. And while I did stay in touch with a bunch of these girls, it wasn't like we didn't live close to one another. Emily and I did. But then, you know, she left pretty soon after that, I suppose. So I just went off on other things and just never reconnected. And I don't remember trying to reach out to Lauren. I probably did. Never got a call back, which I wouldn't blame her about. So, yeah. I guess that's about it. Hang on, I'm going to show you guys something. Don't go anywhere. All right, here you go. I remember buying these t-shirts downtown at the time. Not that I was in support of, freeing OJ or anything at the time. I just remember seeing it thinking, I got to pick up a couple of these t-shirts because maybe it'll be worth something someday. Now that dark spot there, I think might be bleed through, or I don't know. What's it say even on there? Who framed OJ is innocent, 100% not guilty. Isn't that funny? There's nothing funny about this story, by the way. But the fact that I was able to, it took a little while to find these t-shirts. I got stacks of t-shirts I had in bags I totally forgot about. A bunch of bars I used to work at. Made in China. Anyhow. I guess that's it. There's no law that says I have to give you guys an hour video here. I'm going to leave it at that. And you guys can tell me what you think. I know there's a lot of law enforcement guys here. I mean, if I'm going to think this out, I read something in here on the internet there about, Ron's dad, who, he became very vocal about this. And I remember him being on TV shows and all that. And he doesn't want anything to do with that part of the story. And I can understand, and I'm not trying to put this in a bad way. I never met the man, and I totally feel for him. And what a horrible thing to have happened. But this guy, what did I say his name was? Glenn Edward Rogers, he's dead. I mean, I think the state killed him. He was on death row. And you can imagine, all this is going on. You're totally distraught. Your beautiful baby boy has been murdered. I can't imagine. And, it looks like OJ's got something to do with it. If you can actually get something out of OJ. You know what I mean? You're not going to get anything out of this guy. So there's part of that. The thing that my buddy brought up, I guess the video's not over, I guess I can keep talking, was that he was saying how he pointed out to me, he's like, hey man, that's OJ's MO. Because when you look at when he eventually did go to prison, it was because he hired people to go steal his belongings. And that's exactly what the story is with him hiring this guy, Glenn, to go get stuff that he had given his ex-wife. That falls in line with, that's a pattern of behavior. People tend to repeat patterns of behavior. That's how that kind of works. So, and then as far as the cops go, I don't know how long. I think they were probably thinking OJ from the jump and just put all their eggs in one basket. And then, any new information that's coming in that's not going to support that narrative to try to put OJ away, they're not going to pursue it, which is not the right way to do things. But I'm just saying. Again, I don't have a dog in this hunt, okay? I don't think OJ is this great person. I don't want to see him, whether he did it or not, don't know. 2 beautiful people are dead and that sucks. I'm just saying, this is a whole alternative story I had never heard about. And if you look it up, there's a lot of interesting details there. And this guy was an evil, murdering, crazy person. 100% capable of doing it. Admitted to doing it. Admitted to killing at least 70 other people. So, and, there's this whole other thing, which I know this is weird. Okay, I knew Ron, and I met Kato Kalin, and my buddy hung out with this dude, Glenn. And there's all these weird coincidences. And it's a wild story. But that's just how it is. So, all I ever care about with anything is the truth. It's all that matters to me. If it makes me look bad or silly or whatever, I don't care. Is it the truth? Fine. I can admit to the truth. I think the whole world would be a better place if people could just admit what the truth is to things. Who OJ is or was or whatever, I could care less about that guy, And I will just say that if this is the story, he's not innocent anyhow. Wouldn't be 100% innocent, because if the story that my buddy told me, what you can read here, if this is the truth, then OJ is 100% culpable for their murders anyhow, because he was the guy that would have hired this guy, Glenn, to go there and get this stuff. And he could have told him to kill her. I can't imagine OJ being the guy that he was at that time, for as famous as he was and the work that he had and being in show business and everything else. It's very hard for me to accept that he would have told this guy to kill her. But he probably didn't know that he was hiring a murderer to get these earrings. That's the mistake that he made. I mean, a whole bunch of mistakes, I'm sure, but you hire a crazy person that kills people and you don't know about it, and he ends up killing people. Doesn't matter, you didn't know about it. That's your fault. Right? So he'd still be culpable anyhow. Anyhow, that's this. That's the end of this one. Sorry there wasn't any ha-ha stuff for you. But that's just the way it goes sometimes. So look, you guys have a great night. This is a nice short one. It's not going to be that, not going to do that great on here, I'm sure. But I will say thanks for being here and thanks for watching. I know that the videos, I've been slowing down throughout the week. It's not like I'm doing a video every day or anything. Just had too much going on in my mind and trying to catch up with projects and dealing with people and work stuff and all of that. So bear with me. There's going to be some hiccups along the road here. I am not a professional. I keep saying that, but I've got over 1,000 YouTube videos on this channel. So I purposefully am trying to keep this as rudimentary as possible. At least it seems that way to me. I've been reluctant to, buy some other camera because it's not going to work with the old computer anyhow. And, I don't have a mic to put on my body. I want to speak to that real quick because I get those comments from time to time that you wish I had a mic on when I'm at the shop, because sometimes I turn my back on the camera and I'm talking. Yeah, just if you turn your volume up, you can hear me. And then you can turn the volume back down again if I get too loud. It should be pretty simple. When I came up, you actually had to get up out of your chair and walk 10 feet or more, across the room and manually turn a dial on the TV to turn channels or turn up the volume or turn it down. And if the picture wasn't right, you had to move the rabbit ears around, put some tin foil on there or something. Today, if you're watching it on a computer, it's as simple as just moving your finger to move the volume. And if you're watching on your big old TV, you got a remote control. So sorry to make you have to do that. But for the time being, you're going to have to do that. It should be pretty simple for you. I know you can figure it out. I've got faith in you. Eventually, who knows? Maybe it'll get better. I did mention the radio show thing, and I guess I'll bring that up. Not talking about them, but it gave me a taste for the podcast type of forum, and I could see possibly doing that at some point. But you kind of need a place set up, and you need some lights set up, and you need mics. It requires a little bit of equipment, and and then trying to get people in to talk to and that sort of thing. I've been trying to put some feelers out with some weird people through social media. So eventually somebody's going to bite, and they're going to be like, "Oh, sure, I'll hang out and talk to you." And whoever these people are, it's going to be interesting for you. So we'll see if anything actually comes of that. But I'm trying. And I've been writing little outlines too, for the things I want to get up on stage and talk about at some point. So there'll be some fun stuff coming out of that. I don't think I'd be making any funny jokes about the O.J. Simpson situation. And fuck him. We don't have to talk about him at all. But Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, there's nothing funny about that whatsoever. So I can't imagine trying to come up with something funny about that. But this evil asshole There's just sick bastards in the world, man. What are you going to do? You know, what are you going to do? It's not like they're all walking around telling everybody, but apparently this guy was pretty open about what he had done, and people knew about it, and the cops knew about it. And so if this is something that interests you, I suggest you look him up, Glenn Edward Rogers. You can just type in Glenn and OJ, and you're going to get a whole bunch of information there. And you guys can decide for yourself. Keep in mind, I'm not going to argue with you about it. I'm not saying this is absolutely the truth. It's just what I've heard. And then after reading a bunch of this, it sounds pretty friggin' plausible to me. They never did find a knife. You know, that glove never did fit. There were some definite inconsistencies there with the way that they were trying to, you know, go after OJ with it. This could be the explanation. This could be the whole thing. And again, remember, I said a few minutes ago, it doesn't make OJ innocent. Because, according to the story, he hired this guy. So if he hired this guy, their deaths are still on his hands. But there's how many of you have heard this? I never heard it before. And apparently this information's been out there for quite some time. I'm just looking at the computer here to see. Well, 2012, as early as 2012, there's a story there from USA Today. And looks like 2012 was about a year. There's a lot of stories here from 2012. So I would say maybe this information, I mean, the information, once you start looking, doing your own research on it, you'll find that they knew about this guy at the time. He was arrested pretty close around that time. And there's videos with this guy and everything. It's pretty crazy. So if this is something you're interested in, look into it. Feel free to leave comments below. Tell me what you think. And I hope I'm not offending anybody here or anybody in those families. Sorry, people I knew in the past that were part of this. I'm not trying to bring up bad times for you. This is just something this is part of my life too. And this is something I heard. And it's just, and I thought, how crazy is it that I knew Ron, and then I ended up meeting Cato, and then, this guy, I know this friend of mine that knew this guy, Glenn, that said he did it. Wow. What a bunch of weird coincidences, and this is why I don't leave the house anymore, people. This is why I don't go out. I go out and weird crap happens. I used to say that because it used to be like that, honestly. My life was crazy. In the 90s and the early 2000s and all that. It pretty much all stopped around 2010 when I broke both my wrists in a motorcycle wreck, and I got a cadaver bone in this wrist here. And so for the last 14 years, I've been basically a shut-in for the most part. I barely go out at all. It took a while for my wrists to heal and be able to get back to work and all that. And ever since then, I've been like, all right, I've had enough. Because too much happens, man. It's too much. I just want everything to slow down a little bit. But to be honest with you, it got too slow. And now all I do is lay around. That's why all my stories are old stories, But then if I, just putting a little effort into life, boom. I end up becoming friends with Sarah, right? Wonder Hussy. And that's why a lot of you people are here now. And then the people I've met through her already. That's just how things work with me. If I go out and I start talking, boom, 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 things start falling into place. It's odd. That thing, whatever that is, like a magnet for interesting things. I did make a commitment to myself when I was very young. I'm just rambling here, right? That all I wanted, the only goal I had in this life, which was bad because I made this when I was very young. I just didn't want to have a boring life. That's all that mattered to me. I didn't care about kids or owning a house or having a business or $1 million. I just wanted life to be interesting. And for the majority of my life, it's been very interesting. But it's been too much, man. I mean, even the Bigfoot thing. Right? Sasquatch experience. Some of you guys have seen the UFO pictures. I go out and I meet crazy people. I meet super crazy famous people. It's just, it's insane, these things that have happened. And all it was me going out, just leaving the house. So, you know, in order to have a life, you got to live a life. In order to live the life, you got to get out once in a while. So some people will say, this guy's done too much. It can't be true. Nothing could be true. But what are you doing? Where do you live? Right? Because if you live in some little town and you never left it, well then, yeah, probably not a lot of crazy stuff is happening. You're probably better off. It's like when I talk to young people, a lot of young guys will ask me about women and that sort of thing. And my advice to them usually is, if you can find one good one that does it for you, just stick with that. Stick with that. Don't try to be like me in the life I live, because then you'll be all alone. Oh. Keeping it simple is probably a better way to go, is all I'm saying. As long as that doesn't bother you. I just never wanted to be boring. And so it has not been boring. This has not been a boring life. And there's no sign of an ending. And now that I've been putting myself out there for a little while on YouTube now, it's actually picking up again. So I suppose I'm just going to have to accept it and roll with the punches. And maybe good stuff will keep happening. Let's do that. How about we all just focus on the good, uplifting one another. Let's throw that positive energy out there and help one another out, be good to one another, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night, and have a good week, man. Wake up on the right side of the bed tomorrow. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.